if people in the community who have some kind of platform or some kind of voice don't use their voice to help grow the community, people outside aren't really going to feel motivated to join. So if girls, even girls now using social media, me and my friends will always be like, oh, trying to get our friends at school or our friends in the gym to kind of join and try the sport. So I think the best way to grow the community is just outward support and always encouraging and being kind, and just being overall supportive of people who want to try and do the sport.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Roe Show. This week we have Seneca Schwartz, who is a well-known girl flipper from America. Her and I discussed the reality about how to get more girls into the freestyle flipping community. We talk about why there are not so many females already in the community and go over the different potential factors that may play a role. Seneca gives me some of her insights into what she would like to see more from the gym owners, parents, and even the older generation in terms of actively encouraging women to get into flipping. If you are a young lady thinking about getting into parkour or G-Tramp and you want a boost of inspiration, this episode's for you. Okay ladies, let's go. Hey Seneca, thanks so much for coming on the show this week. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be able to talk to you. Your name's definitely gone around the parkour world as one of the, top girl flippers. You call them girl flippers in parkour?
Yeah, girl freerunners. I think there's like a French name for someone who does parkour, but I don't really, go along with that.
Tracer, I think they call it tracer.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get into it? So because obviously it's a little bit more male dominated. So you're one of the few girls. So how did you get into it?
So I got into parkour and freerunning by watching American Ninja Warrior. And a lot of the people who are on American Ninja Warrior were also parkour coaches at their local gyms. And I was like, that looks so cool. And I didn't really see a lot of women doing it. And then one day I found an ad in like a packet of ads that just came to my house. And it was an ad for a gym nearby. And it was like, do you want to be our next American Ninja Warrior? And they said they offered parkour classes. And I took parkour classes for maybe like 4 or 5 years. And now I'm kind of just training on my own.
Okay. And how old were you when this happened?
I want to say I was either 8 or 9, maybe even 10, around then.
Oh, so you were young. You were still kind of exploring the world, trying to figure out what you wanted to do, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And what made parkour stand out to you? What was it about Ninja Warrior that made you go, oh my gosh?
It was different. It wasn't relying on a team as much, and it wasn't something like gymnastics where you're rated on, like perfection of skill or something. It was kind of like an individual competition with yourself and trying to constantly improve your skills. And it was also just something I've never seen before. I've always been, kind of a rowdy kid. I love to jump on stuff, flip around and stuff. So I thought it was kind of a perfect thing for an active kid like me.
That's perfect. What'd your parents think?
My parents were all for it. At first they were a little hesitant, because like if you search up parkour online, it's just people running across buildings and stuff. So like, I don't know if I want Seneca doing that. But once they were like, it's a gym, they have mats, foam pits, it's safe. They were like, okay, this is good.
Okay, so it was a good, easy way to kind of get into it. You didn't start on the streets. You started in the gym.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a better way to start?
Yeah, I think there are advantages to being taught in a gym, because obviously you learn safety and you learn how to roll out of things if you over rotate, and you learn how to not hurt yourself, especially when you have a coach with you. They'll always give you tips and things you can improve on, which can be a little hard if you're trying to learn on your own outside, maybe with like, in front of buildings where there's like concrete and stone walls. So it's always a good thing to have mats and, people around that can coach you on those kind of skills.
Yeah, my entire background is all pretty much coaching like the traditional, like you said. Everything's got to be perfect, which, like you said, it kind of sucks at times. But when you got to do something, that's where I'm going in the back of my head, is to my training to make sure I don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's really cool. So then you started training, and then did you go outside after? Or did you just stay in the gym and it became just Ninja Warrior for you more?
Yeah, so I stayed in the gym up until I learned a few flips on ground. So that was like back flip, side flip, and front flip, like those basic three. And then my mom encouraged me to kind of go to a park and see how I can apply the skills I learned in the gym outside, because all the videos that we've been watching were people doing it outside. And I eventually wanted to take those skills outside as well. So I remember my mom, whenever we were free, we had free time, she was like, let's go to the park and, we can try to do some flips or, apply those skills outside, because that's kind of, even though parkour can be done in the gym, it's always a lot cooler if you can do it outside.
Okay, so once you did a bunch of training, how long did you train before you started now taking your skills outside?
So it was kind of all up to me, but I wanted to make sure I could do some stuff outside. I had some vaults down, but I wanted to make sure I had some flips. So I started out with the basic side flip, front flip, and back flip. So once I got those in the gym on ground, on spring floor, my mom offered to take me to a park and maybe try to apply those skills outside. And so whenever we had free time, she would take me to a park and be like, maybe you want to try a Kong here or a dash vault here. And once I got more comfortable and kind of started gaining confidence, I started doing the flips outside.
Yeah, that's very cool. And so your mom was really part of your training. She wasn't just, yeah, whatever, go have fun. She was there with you.
Oh yeah, for sure. She has always kind of been along with my sister. She has always encouraged us to, take risks.
So when you went outdoors and you started working on actual outside environment, your parents were there with you, or at least your mom was there. So she was a real integral part of your training and adapting it from that traditional gym, then out to the more freestyle world.
Yeah, she has always, gone to the gym with us, and she filmed everything we did. And she was the type of person who was like, you always, make sure to learn from your mistakes and make sure you're doing it safely, of course. But she's always encouraged us to take risks and try new things, experiment with our skills. I don't really know why she was so, I guess she just wanted to support what her kids were doing. So she was always kind of there with us, and she took us to places to film stuff and film lines. So she's always been really supportive and encouraging when it comes to parkour and free running.
That's cool. That's very good. You're lucky. There's definitely some parents that couldn't give two rats' butts about it.
Yeah.
Dan, do you think that's really made a difference? Like, if your mom hadn't supported you, would you have just gone out with yourself or with, one of your friends and just done it anyway? Or did she make a different impact?
I think as a female athlete, it's important to have people who support you and who stand with you. Having my mom there and telling me that, just focus on your work, focus on your skills was really important and motivating to me. And I think if she wasn't there to kind of push me in the right direction, I wouldn't have had as much motivation as I do now. So she's definitely been a huge supporter, and I guess she's pushed me in the right direction when it comes to where I want to go with the sport.
That's very good. Very good. Very lucky again. But
Yeah.
what about the boys because were you guys just kind of going off on your own, or did you go to some of the other cool hangout spots where the other parkour athletes would be? Were you shunned? Did you try to integrate with them, or how did that work?
Yeah, so at first at the gym, when I started taking classes, my sister and I were the only girls in our class, and it was me and nine boys. I remember trying to impress the older boys a lot, and I also felt really intimidated by them. But once I started gaining confidence, once I started to get to know my coaches better and the people in the gym better, I kind of just focused on myself and the skills that I have to improve on. But I definitely did feel intimidated at first when I saw all the older guys doing flips and tricks I couldn't do. And I remember this one time I saw this kid on the tumble track, and he was doing I guess a stall side flip, and I just watched him in awe. I was like, I want to do that one day. And I obviously wanted to ask for advice or tips when it comes to it, but it's scary when you're the only girl there and you want to improve, but you kind of don't have someone you can relate to or someone you look up to.
Okay, so you were the only girl there that was actively participating in the parkour classes?
Yeah, me and my sister.
Okay, so you guys were kind of a two woman band kind of thing, doing your own thing. You're watching the boys. You're like, oh, I really want to go help them. Was it just were they already kind of like, because you're a girl, or were they just so into their thing that you just you didn't approach them just because you thought they were too busy?
I don't I don't think they showed any outward exclusion, but there was like a feeling of like, oh, they definitely don't want to help me, or they don't want to kind of integrate with me at all. But there was no like, I guess like them saying, oh, like we don't want you here. There was none of that, which is good. But it's still scary to kind of reach out and say, oh, can I hang out with you guys? Can I train with you guys? But as I got older, and as you know, the boys like filtered through, because I stuck at the gym for a long time, and those boys who took the classes kind of faded in and out, and not all of them stuck with me through the whole time I was at the gym, and I'm still at the gym. So yeah, there was no outward exclusion, but I definitely felt kind of outside of the group, you could say.
Yeah, no, it's not hard to understand. You know, I was adopted when I was a kid, and obviously I was the only Russian kid in Canada at the time with the dropping of the Iron Curtain and stuff like this. So I know exactly what it's like, and I found a really good community with my traditional gymnastics friends, and you know, there was no exclusion there. So I would like everyone to be able to, you know, feel that they could go to somebody and ask. You know, we had a lot of young kids, so we were the older group. We had a lot of younger kids, and it was a bit of the same way, because I was still 16, 17 at the time, but these are 8-year-old kids. And I was like, oh, whatever, Jeremy, I want to just do my thing. So I can see their perspective, but now being on the other side of the fence, I guess we'll call it, I can see how giving a little bit of a push to those older few to kind of help bring up the younger ones, or the excluded ones in any capacity, really is important for a whole sport to grow.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of social media, because when I first downloaded Instagram, I would slowly find other females across the world who did parkour, and I made connections with them, and that's how I actually started my first documentary. But it's just really awesome to see other girls around the world. Even if you're not, you know, close, you can still message them through Instagram and other social medias to be like, oh, I got this, you know, like you talk about your training and your thoughts on whatever things are happening in the parkour community. And it's always just like really comforting to find people that are like you training in the community.
And so is that how you kind of picked up? So the boys at the actual gym weren't so eager to chill out, but you found more girls online that you could connect with, and that helped keep you motivated?
Yeah, for sure. I saw all these girls from different countries, and through finding girls and those girls being friends with other girls, I started to find female athletes in my area as well. And so up until like three or 4 years ago, I only knew like 1 or 2 girls in my area, but now I know more than that, which is awesome. And going to Woodward for camp and meeting female athletes from like the Northeast in the US is also really cool.
Yeah, no, it's definitely grown. Like, I've seen a lot more girls out there. We are trying to grow the girl flipper community within freestyle trampoline, but we're having a bit of the same issues where, you know, there is a group of girls that want to, but they're a little bit nervous to approach, and the boys are doing their quads and all the big stuff. So they kind of go, oh, I don't know if I want to play in that arena quite yet. And this is where we're trying to figure out how to integrate them. You know, I guess my question would be then, if a community wants to bring more women into it, what would be, at least your opinion, for a good starting point?
It's all outward support. You know, it's always encouraging girls to come into this community. It's always encouraging younger athletes and the athletes of the younger generation to come and compete or come and train. If people in the community who have some kind of platform or some kind of voice don't use their voice to help grow the community, people outside aren't really going to feel motivated to join. So if even girls now using social media, me and my friends will always be like, oh, trying to get our friends at school or our friends in the gym to kind of join and try the sport. So I think the best way to grow the community is just outward support and always encouraging and being kind, and just being overall supportive of people who want to try and do the sport.
Very good, very good. Yeah, we are trying to do that as well. There's always more to do, you know, but I think like any sport, it does grow and grow and grow just with time. And so I guess here's a first harder question. If you're going to integrate women into a male dominated sport, let's call it, like freestyle, do you think that, let's talk about the competitions first, because online they can kind of do that freely and with support, like you said. If you want to get them into a competition though, Do you think it's better to have them have their own competition, or to be integrated with the boys against the boys equal, where there is no, oh, well, because you're a girl, you get a, a special deal?
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. This is something that I've thought about for a while as well, because, I'm always for equal prize money and kind of equal competition. But there's a point where men, especially since they dominate the sport, there'll obviously be more of them, but also men are built differently, biologically. They're stronger, they have more muscle like density or whatever. So I think when you put women and men in the same category when they're competing, it can be harder for women to kind of one up themselves and continue on if you're doing a bracket, like a bracket competition or whatever the competition is. So it's kind of like that continuous and constant, like, oh, which one is better, which one should we do when it comes to competition. But there are also good things when it comes to women having their own category, because women are competing against women are competing against people at their own like training level. And I was talking to a coach at Woodward this summer or last summer, and he was saying how women are still kind of new to the sport. Men have been at the start of parkour and freerunning since the beginning, but women have been slowly coming into the sport, and since they're slowly coming in now, they're still new, and so their skill level may not be as good as those parkour and freerunning athletes at the very top of their game. So it can really go either way. Obviously, we want equal competition, but we also want women to not be overbeared by like men or like their skills and stuff.
Yeah, it's good points. Very good points. I would argue that there's no such thing as equality in sports.
Interesting.
What do you think about that? That men and women will never be equal for one reason or another. Like you said, there's genetics and there's this and that. And when let's say hypothetically, then there's a same amount of women all of a sudden in 10 years, there's the same amount of women doing parkour as men.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not think that then there's going to be a push for one of them to regain the lead?
No, I don't really think so. I think once women kind of realize the sport is out there and they start training in the sport, and more women encourage other women to join the sport, I think that it's not, parkour and freerunning isn't a toxic community at all, and people will continue to support each other. So I think people don't really mind if others are kind of just joining the sport and just doing their thing, because it's all about encouraging each other and uplifting each other when it comes to parkour and freerunning.
So you think they'll just keep integrating and it'll just eventually get closer and closer to even, but it'll never become really uneven again, simply because that's not really the goal. The goal isn't to beat the other gender. It's to make everyone kind of more together, where hopefully you'll see that there will be, 100 parkour boys and 100 parkour girls at the same competition. And that is just what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly what you said.
Very good. I hope that happens. I would like to get more females in our sport, just so it's not purely male dominated. There's obviously pros and cons to anything, but we would like to see more of a balance, and I know the parents would as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you start thinking about sports and just the different ways people do sports, do you think that there will be, a whole nother category coming in the future? Like right now we're seeing in America, there's now a lot of different, let's call them subgenders and all that sort of stuff. Where do we go with that? As now we're going to have boys, girls, and then I don't know the politically correct terms, but the ones that are still kind of trying to figure out where they fall in that spectrum. Are they going to make their own category, or do they integrate in one or the other? Where would you like to see that? Where do you think that will go?
Yeah, this is something that's crossed my mind definitely, but I still don't even have like a solid opinion on this or a solid thought on where it might go in the future. I think right now, there's not enough people, I guess, like non-binary people or transgender people who fall in between that kind of span, or what's it called? Spectrum, there you go. So I think right now, like, the main focus is to kind of get women and men equal, but you're definitely correct when it comes to people, because there are people, I know there are trans athletes out there who do parkour, And I know some trans athletes who have gone to competitions, and there's always been this debate of whether, like, if when it comes to, like, I don't know how to word this correctly, and like, if you there's always going to be those people who are like, if you were born a male, you're going to have you're biologically a male even though you identify as a woman. So when it comes to sports, it's really really difficult to kind of find where they fall, because it's obviously something that's new, and especially when it comes to sports, and it's something still people are still kind of not always accepting to. So even in society, when we talk about people who are non-binary or transgender, there's always going to be people who completely ignore what they want to do, and then people who are in support of what they want to do. So when it comes to sports, it's still new. And I know that I've read some articles about the Olympics and trans athletes and non-binary athletes. So I really I really don't know where it will go. And I think I also need to educate myself when it comes to this as well. So I don't want to say anything that I don't really have a solid opinion on, because I don't know much about it as well. So I really don't know what it'll be like in the future when it comes to those people, those trans and non-binary athletes, people who fall in between the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's a tough one, and that's part of our podcast, is to ask the tough questions that people sometimes get a little uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, if we don't have those discussions earlier than later, then you might be leaving athletes on the table or off the table that really should be there just because you haven't addressed it.
For sure. Yeah.
And we would like to address all of that. Now,
yeah.
Well, when we're talking about, let's just kind of stick to men and women at this point. Mm-hmm. Do you think that men and women should appear the same way in a sport? And what I mean by that is that there's a culture. Parkour has a culture. You guys have your baggier pants and the tracer pants and all that sort of stuff. Do you think that the women should do that, or should they be more in women attire, which is not sure exactly what that is, but shorter shorts, a little bit more, female oriented? Or would you rather see them both the same for the hope of equality?
I think that, both sides, women and men, should kind of do what they want. I know that men have kind of led the path when it comes to appearance in the sport and how they appear when it comes to media or on the social media as well. But I think women should be able to choose how they want to appear and what the clothes they want to wear and what skills they want to focus on. And also when it comes to social media and media, I think it's important to broadcast both genders equally, because if you don't have enough women out there in YouTube videos, in social media posts, on TV even, I think the little girls out there who have never heard of this sport will kind of think like, oh, that's maybe something I can do because she's doing it on the screen. Like, I see someone who I relate to. It's not all men that are doing the sport. And so it gives them a chance to have a role model and someone to look up to that kind of inspires them and pushes them toward trying the sport. So I think appearance, obviously anyone should do whatever they feel comfortable with, but it's also important to show both sides of the story.
Very good, very good. So you think that getting the influencers of a community, the top ones, you should almost kind of make it a thing that when you work with them in some capacity, that they are out there actually pushing not just women, but all people equally, because that's what eventually people are going to see. No one's going to see, the 8-year-old little girl that got 2 views on her little YouTube channel doing a back roll, but they'll see Tempest free running, for example. And so therefore they should try to integrate more with women on their platforms as well. Yeah,
for sure. And I think there's a little bit of like a setback when it comes to media and TV who show parkour, and they don't really understand the parkour community that well. And they kind of show, if you look on YouTube and be like top 10 free running athletes, they're most likely all 10 are going to be men. And so if someone running that account doesn't really understand what the parkour and free running community is about, then I think they're going to be more inclined to show what's out there, and what's out there is men. Like, men are always there's more men, so there's obviously going to be more videos of men doing stuff. So I think even though there are more men doing stuff out there and posting videos on social media and YouTube, it's also important to dig deep and find those female athletes who are killing it in the game and try to show them as well. Like you said before, and it's important to kind of show support and encourage other people to join the community.
Well, it's an interesting point that you bring up there, because CNN, ESPN, whoever else that showcases these things randomly once in a while to, let's say, 3 million households or something like that, depending on the Nielsen ratings for whatever. Basically, their job should be to go to someone like yourself first, right? But they do it all in-house, and I know this, so they're actually almost fueling the fire, or at least unfueling it in the wrong direction. They're not helping, however you want to say that, and so you think that they should be actively saying, no, it's not up to us to decide based on just the views. We should be asking an influencer somewhere in the middle, maybe, that can show both sides and give an objective perspective.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but for sure, trying to get someone who's actually in the community and understand what's the difference or what's happening in the community, to kind of show larger media corporations what the truth is and what reality is actually like in the parkour community. Yeah, that's.
I stumped you a little bit there.
Yeah, you did.
That's okay. That's what I'm trying to do a little bit. Not too much though, but
yeah.
It's interesting because when you deal with TV productions, they're just going after ratings, and they're just going after whoever has the biggest name, despite their gender. So in one sense, it looks almost like on the surface that they are biased towards one side or another. But in another sense, they're really not, because what they're saying is, I don't really care about your gender. Just give me whoever has the most views, because I know that's what I'm selling my ads for. And so it's almost like now you have this paradox, or an issue where, how do you resolve that? How do you get these big networks that fundamentally don't want to have to go through all the trouble process to call people like us up every day and say, oh, what should I do? They just want to do it in-house and get it done off the plate. Is there any way around that issue, do you think? Do you think it will resolve itself over time when more discussions like this are had openly? Or is it always going to be whoever gets the most, and it's about just getting more views?
There's we definitely need something that breaks that kind of pattern, because it's going to be a continuous cycle of just larger media corporations kind of reusing the same athletes, and kind of reusing the same pattern or of like videos that they're using. So I think it's important that women and female athletes continue to put out what they're doing and show the world that we exist and we're out here training as well. And I think that we just have to get their attention. So we just have to continue to post, and speak up, have these conversations, talk about how to improve the community, so we can kind of grab their attention and say that we're out here, we're training, and there are more of us that want to inspire more people, and that that's I'm kind of losing my words a little bit. I'm losing my train of thought, but
no, I understand. I totally get what you're trying to say. And let's say that you start a all-female parkour group, for exactly what you're saying, get more people out there, bring a bunch of girls together, get them to all kind of band together. Do you think that would help? Or do you think that potentially there could be other people on the other side of the fence to say, well, now look, the girls are coming over here doing this on their own? And is it better to have a group with men and women equal, or to have two groups but equal amount of boys and girls?
I think both are really good ideas. I know teams that have both men and women in them, but I think I've never seen a whole just females in a group before, and a female parkour group. So that would be really, really awesome to see. Since there's none of them out there. All the teams that I can think of are just like 6 or 7 guys doing parkour. So I think it'd be really cool to see kind of the opposite of that, and see how an all-girl parkour team would work, and what they would do to kind of push the community forward in a more positive direction. and to see the growth of females that way. And I think it would definitely be a great idea. I've actually talked about this with my friends. My friends like, what if you made an all-girl parkour freerunning group? Like, what do you think that would do? And I think that would just move us in a better direction. It would kind of promote inclusivity and integration between men and women when it comes to parkour. So I only see positives when it comes to having an all-girl parkour group and an integrated women and men parkour group.
I agree. I'm actually surprised, like you are, that there isn't a female parkour group. I would have thought there would be, some strong women out there that say, yeah, let's go, take down the men. We're gonna make a parkour team and we're gonna get millions of views. I would have thought that someone would have done that. But do you think that there is something inherent in girls that make them kind of a little bit more hesitant to go out there and go, yeah, because boys will do it. Boys will, oh yeah, get a bunch of your guys together, we're gonna go make a team, and it's very easy. Girls tend to be a little bit more hesitant. Is that because of the way they perceive what's already out there with all more male dominated, or is there something about just women thinking a little bit different and just saying that's not for me? Like, is freestyle for women? Or is that like only one small subset of women that actually fit into that kind of category?
I think it really just comes down to perspective and how society's values reflect how women think. So it can have to do with how girls are being raised. Like, parents have a huge role in kind of reflecting their values within their child, and how society perceives women and how society perceives women in sports especially. So I think when you say that women are more hesitant, which is absolutely true. I see that, every day in parkour, especially when you look at a guy who's doing a huge pre or, whatever the trick is. Women will usually, even if they are capable, I feel like women do have that first intuition of saying, oh, is this actually going to be safe for me? Is this, am I going to get hurt while doing this? Am I going to get injured? So I think women will be hesitant, when it comes to doing big tricks or even starting a parkour group. I think women kind of look toward the negatives first. And that comes down to how society has raised women, how parents raise their girls. So I think it kind of all ties in together.
Okay, so you think that it's women are a little bit more shy, but does that mean that they'll never really get up to equal? Because if they're naturally a little bit more shy, maybe for some genetic reasons, some social reason, let's go 50-50, because God, who knows, does that mean that they'll never really get there and the male dominated sport will always be there? Or is there a way to get past those barriers?
I think in order to get past those barriers, we have to have more women who are showing that there's nothing wrong with being a girl who does parkour, people using their platform to, voice their opinions and voice their values, showing that strong women can do parkour. And it's all about like confidence and just encouragement and support. So I think in order to get past those obstacles, we have to see more women encouraging other women. And once we kind of get that unifying bond together, we'll be able to move past those obstacles. So I think it's finding women who are willing and confident to speak up and talk about these important issues that we're talking about.
I agree. Definitely they have to. Now here, let me throw another little wrench in here.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
Yeah.
Do you believe that other females are successfully pushing other females? Or do you think that there's that, like you said, well, you're going to get hurt? And do they actually hold each other back more than they push each other forward? Is this actually partly, or at least one factor, is women oppressing women, even in sport?
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never really thought about that. From my personal experience, I've never experienced obviously it's a different thing if something is unsafe, but someone telling me not to do something because they're just telling me not to do something is something I've never really experienced. But I think women, going back to the first point that you made, I think women can always do more to encourage others and help others. And especially if they have, 10,000 followers or more, they obviously have a platform because they have people who are following their content and the videos they post. So I think it's important for those women who have a voice to kind of help other women rise up and uplift each other. Yeah, so
well, what if, we're not talking about, or at least let's take away the athletic girls for a second. Let's look at the average ones. Like when you go to school and you have a guidance counselor and you have a teacher there that's, 30, 40 years old, how many of those female teachers do you really think are going to, when a female student comes to them and says, I want to do parkour, how many of those female mothers, generally speaking, would really say, oh yeah, don't do music, don't go to arts, don't become a lawyer, go do parkour? I feel like that would be I would not see that too often, even outside the athletic world, just that natural sort of, mantra that happens in society before you even start thinking about what sport you want to do. Do you think that plays a factor?
Yeah, for sure. And especially, yeah, that makes total sense. And I know people who have told my friends not to do something, especially because they were a girl. And I think that kind of mindset just kind of demeans girls and kind of puts them at a lower level, and which is not helpful at all, because we just want to improve as a community together. And even just not talking about parkour as like society in general, women have to continue to support women, because if we don't, then it's the gap between men and women, whatever that may be, in business, in social life, in sports, it's gonna separate, and it's not gonna give a good outcome for women. So I think it's important from within for women to continue to support women and encourage each other, because I think when men encourage women, it's a different kind of feeling than when a woman encourages another woman, because there's this kind of different understanding and different relation between the two. But I think also there's like a generational gap, because if I ask maybe my mom, well not my mom, but let's say another woman her age, like, oh, I'm doing this sport, what do you think? I think their first instinct is, oh, that's unsafe, that's not something a girl should be doing. So I think there's this generational gap, and this perspective that an older generation has, that's kind of stopping girls that want to do kind of outside of the box things, and they're just stopping them. So I think our generation is a very like progressive generation, and they're able to support each other and find the light, find the good in everything. So I think that if we continue what we're doing, if we continue to speak up, and if we continue to support each other, then we'll make change for the younger generations.
I agree. Interesting. You bring up a lot of good points. It's going to be hard to bring that gap together. And it's almost like, people focus on the athletes. Okay, the influencers have to bring women up, and that's their job, which I agree 100%. I don't think anyone would argue with that. Mm-hmm. Then you got the other side that says, well, before they even get into the sport, though, what's the grandparents told the kids? What's mom told the kids? What's the neighbors told the kids? And these are generally older populations that are, like you said, not as progressive. So they're almost hurting women before they even realize it. They think that they're helping them, but they're dampening their ability to, see that those communities exist. So it's almost like you need both sides. You need to actually target the educational system, like the school boards, and have a parent-teacher meeting with that sort of community, not just the athletes.
Yeah, for sure. My mom, when I was first talking about creating my documentary, my mom recommended that I kind of go out and do almost like a survey or like a presentation to moms in my community, and give them like 3 options. If your daughter could do soccer, ballet, or parkour, like which one would you allow them to do, and kind of see the difference in the answers, and kind of see which one they were more likely to choose. And my mom was like, you're definitely, if you were to do the survey, because I didn't actually do it, but she was like, I think they would definitely, the lowest one they would choose would probably be parkour, because I mean, first of all, it's unknown, it's not well known, and it's also something, especially if you have a daughter, it can be something, that you don't really, your mind doesn't really go to, oh, like I'm going to register my daughter in this parkour class. Like, you have so many other options that I think mothers will kind of be more comfortable putting their daughter into a sport that they know and they understand. So the fact that it's not that well known, and it's also male dominated, and it's a pretty dangerous sport. I think all those three factors come into play when mothers or grandparents or neighbors have a choice or have a voice in what kids can do these days. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, people like to say, oh well, there's not enough women in this sport, therefore it's the men's fault. It's very easy to make these binary assumptions, but I think what we've explored over the last little bit here is that there's a bit of a factors everywhere. There's just the older generations that are oppressing their own gender more than they even realize, just because of something completely unrelated, because they're not telling you don't do parkour because of your gender. They're saying don't do parkour because of safety, but it happens to change based on your gender as well. And I think there's a little bit of error. The influencers have responsibility, the parents have responsibility, the teachers have responsibility, CNN or whoever network has a responsibility to get the right information, the balance level. So I think we're all kind of in the same pot. And I would like to see less of this bickering that I see between men and women all the time, when in the reality, we're all kind of made the bed together and we're all laying in it.
For sure. Yeah. I don't think it's a problem about, it's not about blaming one another. It's about just supporting each other. We're all doing the sport because we love to do it. So I think it's just important to keep an open mind and try to kind of see other people's perspective, try to, stand in their shoes, walk in their shoes, and see what they're going through. And just continue to uplift and empower each other. I think that's the most important thing.
I agree. And final question.
Yeah.
Are there female-only parkour classes?
I know that I have a friend who lives in Europe, and she teaches an all-girls parkour class, but I've never heard of it in the US. But that would definitely be a really great idea, because girls can, train and try new skills without being afraid of judgment, especially from boys who can do more skills, who are older, who are stronger. So I think starting classes for just girls is a really great move toward developing confidence in younger girls and girls who want to try and start out the sport.
I agree. And that's why I was interested, because for me, it would have made sense. The first thing I would have done is make a huge campaign for all the parkour gyms out there, and saying, hey, let's get a few just female versions, because it's much easier for a mom to come in and say, oh, okay, I got my 12-year-old daughter or whatever it is. And look, there's a bunch of other 12-year-old kids, girls, that automatically lowers the cortisol and says, okay, someone like me, someone like my daughter, she will fit in. Look, pigtails, whatever whatever stereotype you want to play with, it's much easier for them to see that. So I would think that would be another thing that could be very effective in a very easy way, and also a revenue generator for the gym clubs. It's two birds with one stone.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with everything you just said. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get on that. I'll talk to some of our partners and see if we can get something going.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right. In the meantime, you got to get your all-girl parkour group running.
Yeah, I have to start brainstorming ideas,
Awesome. Well, I'll help you if you ever want any help.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for telling us your story a little bit, and just kind of your thoughts about the whole gender stuff going in freestyle sports. It's a new discussion, not one that's really talked about. So we want to get right to it, and hopefully we can steer everyone into a better direction.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a few things. There's a big world out there worth exploring, and I'm happy to be able to bring these great experiences right to you through this podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast and learned something, please share and take a screen grab of our funky cartoons and hashtag GRT certified for a chance to win a shout out to our community. Also, please leave us a review to be part of helping this information get out into the industry. It's much appreciated. Along with these podcasts, we have a large online content hub that we call the GRT Network, with many other interviews and full tutorials and written content discussing everything about acrobatics. We will be constantly growing this archive of videos like a cross between Netflix and Wikipedia for anyone in the acrobatic industry. We also have a complete online educational program for athletes of all levels that provides a do-it-yourself pathway to success for any acrobat. Check out our constantly growing library of playlists that will teach you anything from tightening up your social media, to how to get around fear, to even learning all the biology that underlies all your acrobatic skills. We work very hard with our team around the world to provide this exclusive content for you and appreciate any donations made to the FTA to help keep these episodes coming at you. And if you want all the content, become a GRT Network full member to get exclusive content before everyone else and access to special discounts and giveaways through our amazing global partners. Thanks guys, see you next episode.